And today is June 7th, 2016. And yes, indeed, we're running out of 2016. A lot of things we talk about are constructs. The NBA is definitely a construct of whores, sellouts, transgender. I don't look at all this stuff anymore. I played basketball. I understand it. I coach the little guys in the neighborhood. Follow your shots. My contention is that race doesn't exist.
You may think you know exactly what race you are, but how would you prove it if someone disagreed with you? The fact is, even though race drives a lot of social and political outcomes, race isn't real. One of the first people to attempt to categorize humans according to race was a German scientist around 1776. He came up with 5 different groups according to physical appearance and geographic origin of their ancestors. Americans of European descent eagerly bought into this type of thinking around the same time. Some historians have said the idea that there were different races helped them resolve the contradiction between a natural right to freedom and the fact of slavery. If whites were their own distinct category, then they could feel a lot better about denying freedom to people who they labeled black and decided were fundamentally different. But as political priorities change, definitions of race in America adjust right along with them. For example, if you were of Mexican birth or ancestry in the United States in 1929, you were considered white. Then, the 1930 census changed that to non-white to limit immigration. Later, when the U.S. needed to increase its labor force during World War II, these people were switched back to white. And what it took to be black once varied so wildly throughout the country, from 1/4 to 1/16 to the infamous 1 drop of African ancestry, that people could actually change races just by crossing state lines. Then, suddenly, in 2000, the government decided that Americans could be more than one race and added a multiracial category to the census. This has left many Americans scratching their heads when it comes to selecting who they are. As many as 6.2% of census respondents selected some other race in a 2010 survey. The idea that someone might look one way and identify another way, or that they might be really hard to place in a racial category, is not new. This is why there was a public debate about whether MSNBC's Karen Finney could say she was black, or how we can't even agree on the racial label assigned to the President of the United States. Of course, many people feel their racial identity is very clear and very permanent. But the fact that some people have changed theirs and that no one can really argue with them shows how shaky the very idea of race is. This is all because there isn't a race chromosome in our DNA that people can point to. It simply doesn't exist. When the medical community links race to health outcomes, it's really just using race as a substitute for other factors, such as where your ancestors came from, or the experiences of people who may have been put in the same racial group as you. Dorothy Roberts explains that sickle cell anemia is a prime example of this. The disease is linked to areas with high rates of malaria, which include some parts of Europe and Asia in addition to Africa. It's not actually about race at all. This, of course, does not mean that the concept of race isn't hugely important in our lives. The racial categories to which we're assigned can determine real-life experiences, they can drive political outcomes, and they can even make the difference between life and death. But understanding that racial categories are made up can give us an important perspective on where racism came from in the first place.
So I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to convince anybody, but I will say that what he's gonna say. Okay, let me just say this. Ethnic, of or relating to a population subgroup within a larger dominant national or cultural group with a common national or cultural traditions, leader of ethnic communities, of or relating to national cultural origins, denoting origin by birth or descent rather than by present nationality, characteristics of or belonging to non-Western culture. Archaic, neither Christian nor Jewish, pagan nor heathen. All right. I didn't see anything in here about shared experiences. But my understanding is that okay. All right. Ethnicity. Oh, race. I can't believe everything you hear.
Hey there, everybody on the internet. Trace Dominguez here for Test Tube Plus. This is a show where we take really big science topics, we talk about them for a whole week, and we break them down into smaller science topics, so hopefully we can all understand them a little better. This is more of a video podcast style show, so make sure you put on your headphones, maybe put me on in the background if you want. That's just fine. I got my notes here. And this week we are talking about humans and where we came from and maybe even where we're going. But today might be a contentious episode because we're talking entirely this whole episode about race. Race is a construct. First off, Sociology 101, race is not real. In biology, there is no race. You can't look at the DNA of someone and be like, that person is this race. Because races don't really exist. They're social contracts. They're social constructs. Today, we see race, but it's really just an adaptation to various parts of our planet. Race is not real, but ethnicity is real. Again, Sociology 101. Basically, when we think of race, we think of a variety of different things. And you're going to think of a different thing depending on what country you live in and what culture you may have grown up in. In America, we have a very specific context for race. Much of our racial discussions are black versus white. But that has to do more with our history, especially the Civil War and the legacy of slavery. But prior to that, before the Civil War, there was an Irish race. They weren't just considered another group of white people. And in fact, the aristocracy in the UK or in Britain thought of them as a different and lower race than themselves, even though they both looked the same if you were to, say, drop them in the middle of the United States today. Cromwell helped cement that by murdering and slaughtering a lot of Irish people. That is still remembered in Ireland today and a big point of their history. Americans likely wouldn't get the context for a racial divide in India or Japan, just as Australia or Nigeria or Brazil might not understand a racial divide of another country. These are social constructions that we build around ourselves. It's part of human nature. We see patterns and we see shapes. It's called pareidolia, where we enjoy seeing faces and clouds and on toast. Those things are the way the human brain works. And that also extends to categorizing humans into different groups. But there's no genetic basis for race, like I said earlier. It's all part of our cultural experience. Wide or thin or tall or bumpy noses, those are all things that are created by our genes. If you don't know what genes are, you can watch our episodes about genetics. There's a lot of them, and they are really cool. Make sure you check those out. There's also differences in, say, hair, which is a big thing in some cultural experiences. For example, kinked hair, straight hair, curly hair, red hair, blonde hair, brown hair. All of that is different in our genetics, but it shows up in every different racial group because we're all human, Homo sapiens. Eye color, body shape, skull shape, all of this is genetically based and so broad that you cannot attribute it to a specific different species or race of things. We are all the same. We are all the same. We boil this all down to skin color a lot, which that's just a big nope. That makes no sense at all. Skin color alone is many different genes all working together. Race is a social contract that we all sign. We don't have to assign it. We don't have to sign that contract, but we do. The American Anthropological Association, they released a statement essentially saying there is no difference in races around the world in everything they've ever looked at. Along all anthropological lines, there is no racial difference. They're all Homo sapiens. And in fact, here's a quote. Differences among the racial categories were projected to their greatest extreme when the argument was posed that Africans, Indians, and Europeans were separate species, with Africans the least human and closer taxonomically to apes. They disagreed with that. Eugenics, which was very popular in ancient Greece and with Europeans throughout history, they were trying to prove that they were the most superior race of humans. But there is no different race of humans. We're all the same. Bill Nye put it really well. He's one of my heroes. Love you, Bill. There's no such thing as a purebred dog, he said. There's no such thing as a purebred dog, he said. The Chihuahua and the Great Dane are both dogs. And if you breed them together, you get, I don't know, something else. But it's still a dog at the end of the day. You can take that thing that you bred, the Chihuahua Dane, and mix it with a Corgi, and while you would think of these as purebred animals, they're all just genetic kind of adaptations over time that we've bred into them. I don't know what a Corgi and a Chihuahua Dane would look like, but man, I bet you it's adorable. And it's the same with humans. We created these differences. They don't naturally occur. The world around us pushed humans into looking a certain way or acting a certain way or shaping themselves a certain way based on our environment, a mix of genetics, of nature versus nurture, if you will. On the other hand, ethnicity is very real. Ethnicity is a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition. Now that sounds much more accurate. If you have different races, they're really different ethnicities. It's not about skin color, it's not about face shape, it's not about intelligence, it's about shared experiences. We are all...
I think this guy is very good. I do believe it's more about behavior, culture. Let's look up culture. What do you follow? Of human, the arts and other manifestations of intellectual achievement regarded collectively, refined understanding or appreciation for this custom arts, social institutions, achievements. All right, individuality.
Sapiens, but we all have different cultural experiences, different physical and cultural religious, and we use these different physical, cultural, and religious ways to cordon ourselves off, but really, we're all human. It's pretty simple. So there you have it. If you missed our previous episode yesterday, which tracks down how humans got from the very earliest human all the way to what you're seeing before you today, click here now for that episode. And as always, make sure you subscribe to Test Tube Plus so you can get all of our videos all week this week, all week next week, and so on and so on. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Very nice group. Okay.
The mother of the 4-year-old boy who climbed into the gorilla enclosure is under siege today.
Happy birthday to you.
This is the mom, Michelle Gregg, cradling her son at his first birthday party. Mommy's right here! You can hear her voice on the disturbing video being seen around the world, trying to comfort her son.
I talked to a few people who said if that was their baby, if somehow through the fortunes and the chances and fortunes, most people said it would have been in there. But not her. She was, Mommy's right here.
This is the mom, Michelle Gregg, cradling her son at his first birthday party. Mommy's right here! You can hear her voice on the disturbing video being...
She was found not culpable. And that's one of the things that you will see in the construct of the so-called black woman is that she's never culpable. No matter what. Never blame the black woman. But I want to talk about the so-called black athlete and the construct.
Dr. Umar, now, you know culturally we are entertainers and we're sports figures, and we have a lot of entertainers and sports figures that have millions of dollars. What is it going to take to have those? Because
Muhammad Ali threw Reggie Barrett in Charleston, South Carolina. donated boxing equipment. This was back in 1971. 71. Yeah. Let me see. No. 1970. Wait a minute. I don't know. Wait, I guess it was 70. I don't know. Let me see something. Okay, it was 70. We had boxing equipment, gloves, heavy bags, um, different size gloves, 8 ounce, 16 ounces, 12 ounce gloves, donated by Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was denied to do an exhibition at County Hall because he had just gotten out of jail, and um, Charleston County Council denied him the right to put on an exhibition in Charleston. But his goodwill still filtered down to where I was on the ground. All right, these guys with the millions of dollars. Well, I'll let them tell the story.
Virtually, that's what we do. We dance, sing, and we play sports, and we make millions of dollars in those areas. What is it going to take to unite some of these football players and basketball players and singers and dancers to come off some of that, to build some of these banks and invest in some of these banks, to go back to their neighborhoods in which they've grown up in, and now they've left? What is it going to take for us to kind of convince some of them who have the millions of dollars to put back into the community?
Well, first of all, we have to recognize that our black celebrities, be they athletes or entertainers, we see them as people, but from a capitalist perspective, they are a corporate product. C is a corporate product. LeBron James is a corporate product. They are merchandise. That means that they are controlled by the corporation. Everything they think, everything they say, everything they do must be rubber stamped by the corporation that created them. They are merchandise. They are not free to exercise their own discretion to use their money how they see fit. We have to understand the black celebrity is in a position to create economic revolution for black people. And because of that, they are being watched more closely by the FBI than Umar Johnson ever could be. I can talk about it, but they have the money to make it a reality. And because of that, they are under a surveillance that's greater than anything COINTELPRO has ever put in our community. So that is to say that they will never...
I don't care how much money you pay a mug for dribbling a basketball around. It's just basketball. These men are playing a boys' game. And a teacher who's added value to society, good teachers, added value, is definitely exponentially greater than these guys. But they make the money. And it's not, they don't really get it. They don't really get them. The money is a fractional reserve system.
They will never be the catalyst for the economic change. They will come in after the change has already taken place, which means we have to do the work. We have to bake the cake, and the celebrities will put the cherry on top when it's done.
Wow. Well, Dr. Umar, we're going to go to the phone lines right here. We have a caller that's been waiting for a while here, and we're going to go to those. Caller, 214, you're on the Bobby Eaton Show.
Yes, good evening, and I wanted to address the sports and entertainment aspect of raising funds for the community, and that would be that these corporations bankroll, like the doc said, these athletes, but they already know where the true athletes come from. So you flip that as black people and you send your black athletes to black universities where that you filter that money from the corporations to the black universities. Because they're going to follow, America loves athletes. And they're going to follow the athletes. The money's going to follow the athletes. And you flip it and you turn it to where you have to talk to your community and send your young black athletes to black colleges where they're more respected, they're more comfortable, and they're more inclined to educate themselves.
So how you feel about that, Dr. Umar?
I actually totally agree with him. In fact, I was questioned on another interview, actually several interviews, about the University of Missouri black student athlete protest that took place a few months ago, not only in Missouri, but at many of the predominantly white institutions around the country. Black students and black student athletes engaged in protest against racism.
Although this is very compelling, although there's no such thing as black. Because these guys could change every area, but material things. Material things don't make you rich, and certainly time is expiring. So whatever worldly goods you have, you're gonna leave it behind. You're not black. We're not black. They're not us. You're not sharing their experience, and they certainly don't share your experience.
On campus, and people ask my opinion, and in support of what the caller just said, I said that if these students were really serious about fighting against racism, you would not be giving $30,000 of your money a year away to a racist white college. You would divest from the University of Missouri and take your $30,000 a year to Howard or Spelman.
Or go to Howard or Spelman or Morehouse, where I went. I went to all those schools. I mean, I was in the AU Center, and those so-called black administrators just ripped off me and other so-called black people. But you got to take the good with the bad.
Hampton or Clark or Morehouse. If you really wanted revolution, you would simply cripple the white college by divesting. What could any of these Division I white colleges do without the black male athlete? Do you realize?
It's difficult to listen to this because, like I said, race is a construct, and these are the people who perpetuate it. Black, 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 white, 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 white. We only have to give an account for ourselves. It only matters what I do, not what we do. There's no we. There's no we. Because if it was, these so-called people would have more devices, be it breweries, shoe factories. These mugs buy their shoes. They can have their shoes made. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody else. Do your own research. Make your own videos. Good night. Good morning.